we actually agreed with David Čeněk on one, because clearly, like where the FAMU should be hearing, we actually agreed with another candidate. I wish that FAMU would be open to the word, to Europe, particularly in our department of screenwriting and dramaturgy. I can see that they are having like much better, much more beautiful scripts. However, what they would do with them when those scripts exist only in the Czech language. We know that the partnership is already being born during the school, during the time of your studies. And we would love when those partnerships became to be international. Therefore, the students would recognize and meet the colleagues from other schools, international schools. They can make partnership, they can make couples. They should be, first of all, citizens of Europe. As you can see over there, and this is not something I would just it would be like, think of me. But my existence at FAMU was heavily influenced by mentoring program. At the school came a lot of very important personalities from within the film, and we were able to learn a lot from them. But even the openness of FAMU towards other schools, suddenly going to Erasmus doesn't mean go to Hamburg, do some embroideries, but we can just go there to really prove something, to really achieve something. However, I feel that this mentoring should be definitely spread, but if it will spread, we would have another challenges. I actually feel that the two people who currently are doing this mentoring program is really like not enough. We shouldn't do that much. I was thinking about how FAMU is organized. You probably know that some schools are organized only by management. So in their leadership isn't anybody who would be associated with the art, but the management. For instance, the students are having the first year, the program that is common for everyone, and only afterwards their specialization is differentiating. Currently, at FAMU, we do have these different departments. And what does it mean? And it means the certain isolation of some of those departments. I think that we are pretty good, like in just overcoming those obstacles. However, it can be even better. But I realized that after what happened at the Faculty of Humanities, these departments became to be important because of safety reasons. We are small communities, and I dare to say that if there is somebody who we would suspect may be a danger for the community, it may be easier to resolve in these small communities than it would if you would have like much wider environment led by management where nobody knows anybody. I also would like to support volunteering, volunteer projects on departments. I'm pretty sure that everything what's good is coming from down, from students. At schools like FAMU, you cannot really order people to do something. It's much better when they actually think about something. They, in cooperation with another department, think about some project, and together with the departments, they do evolve the certain projects. I obviously do not know everyone, so do not know, for instance, how it looks at the Department of Photography. We do have a project that's called 15, and we're working on those with our department of screenwriting, department of producer, producing and department of directing. They have wonderful films being done within these projects. And this is the example of something that was actually initiated from the students. Because long time the students of Department of Screenwriting were working here, were studying here without actually seeing their scripts being realized. I know the film from variety of places, from in front of the camera, from behind the camera. So I know that sometimes there is a lot of emotions around that, but at the end we need to agree on something because there are the certain budget that is available. And I can see that the collectives, sometimes the collectives do not work well. However, at the end, they need to communicate somehow. I think it would be wonderful if we will keep that, and we need to just find the agreement.
Let's talk about what makes FAMU unique. There are several filming schools in Czech Republic, 3, if I'm not mistaken. There's one more in Brno, focused on multimedia. However, FAMU is the only one joining the academic and practical approach. That is something which is criticized by those who were used to FAMU being more focused on the practical aspect. But I think that the academic aspect is also very good because, of course, there's never enough studying, never enough learning. And I think that this link can be very beneficial. Sometimes I feel that the theoretical background, including theses, are things that could be more linked with the practical field. And I think it would be interesting to look at how we can link the theoretical and artistic aspects. We have wonderful projects made by students that join these two aspects, methodological and artistic. Of course, you could say that we have such a department, the Center for Audiovisual Studies, and I would love to see the same trend in other fields, at other departments. It would be great to create these interdisciplinary groups elsewhere. Methodology is closely linked to artistic creation. Those involved in the so-called artistic research pose themselves the very same questions that directors or scriptwriters pose. I have a sip of water, if you allow me. Now, let's talk about a very, very complex topic. FAMU Studio, a wonderful studio which is overwhelmed capacity-wise. And that is something being felt by everyone. When I did my research about this topic, I realized there is a number of issues. And of course, it would be great to hear about the reasons and possible solutions, but this will not resolve the situation immediately. However, I can assure you that I would do my best to improve the situation. So what are the reasons? The first one being that seminars, be it about cinematography or other fields, are exercises or seminars where you only need one person. And that would be something that we need to go back to. It would improve the situation. We will actually enhance our capacities. We received a considerable portion of funding But of course, there will be more issues, especially given our intention to strengthen our international cooperation. And I would love to see this international cooperation. I would love to see short films or small budget films that will be co-created in cooperation with international students, but this will only strengthen the burden that is put on this very small studio. So planning is the key. We need to plan for the capacities of the studio very precisely. And I have experience with that. I worked for a number of festivals. And when you do such jobs, when you, for example, create festival programs, you realize that the biggest problems are created when people do not communicate. And I think that many of those problems are down to that, because we have many projects that are juxtaposed and people do not talk to each other. And when I did my research and I talked to my colleagues, I felt that this is the reason, like a lack of communication. Currently, the studio is overwhelmed also because of the COVID pandemic, because filming came to a halt and now we need to make up for that. So that's one of the reasons that we need to bear in mind. And it would be great if we could communicate that clearly, because when we can communicate, we will come up with solutions. Because we are well aware of how busy students are when working on films. But we just somehow continue business as usual. We somehow make it. We somehow have our students doing all of these things together, but they may end up graduating extremely exhausted. And now I can see that I'm running out of my time. Well, that's complicated. I ran already out of my time. I would need 5 minutes at least. So what do we do? Do I finish my presentation? Okay, I can finish it. Thanks. If I were dean, I would like to ask students about their opinion. I would cooperate with student ambassadors to do that, because I realized that there is FAMU as seen by professors, but there is a completely another different FAMU as seen by students or academic workers. So we should hear from them. Evaluations, another thorny issue. People complete evaluations, fill in evaluations when they are unhappy about something, and that is not enough. We need your feedback. Another issue, I think we talked about that with David already, and that's about academic excellences scholarships. They should be granted only to students from, let's say, students in academic study courses. Another huge topic is the one of ethics, linked to the initiative Nemusíš to vydržet. In this regard, I am convinced that many of the complaints are rather personal conflicts, but in the vast majority of cases, these complaints were absolutely legitimate, and I was shocked at seeing that. I believe that we need mutual respect. Yes, sure, the older generation can be mocked sometimes by the youth, but that also is not respectful, is it? My last point is about graduates, and about students, about the fact that once they graduate, they leave us. And we have to focus on what they do after they graduate. That's why we must realize that all of us are responsible for the future of FAMU. including you students, because you are not only students, but you are also members of the academic community. You are our colleagues. All of us are colleagues. Let's skip this slide. Time's running. This slide is about information systems. Very important point. We are funded based on the so-called Register of Artistic Performances, and we can lose up to 9 million Czech crowns if we do not fill in this very bureaucratic formula correctly. So that's a very complicated questionnaire, very complicated for our colleagues to go through them, and we need to do something about that, because it's a red tape that overwhelms our colleagues. English-speaking programs. It seems that English programs are those suffering from the biggest problems, and we must tackle that in the upcoming 5 years, definitely. The question is whether we will stick to the current system or whether we would change the structure, and some of the English-speaking programs will be part of our regular departments. I talked about that with Ms. Hitmanova in quite a detail, and I realized that the whole process is extremely complex. The different things related to the organization of their studies, etc. I think that this should be discussed in detail with all the stakeholders. We should come up with a clear plan. And of course, we can't forget about our current students, our international students that we are so happy to have here, and that we want to be in contact with our Czech students here. I will not comment on this particular slide. I will say just one thing, and that's that ethical problems at school should be solved within the institution. We should not mediatize those issues. It doesn't bring anything good. It only deteriorates our reputation, and media don't talk about our wonderful results. So let's not do that. With my colleague, Mrs. Bendova, I would love to focus on our cooperation with the Czech Film Fund, especially when it comes to debuts, because the system will change, and especially when it comes to the funding, and we need to be ready for those changes. Finance, I'll leave that just like that. You can read it on your own. If there's a mistake, just let me know. With this slide, 2 more things. I think that we all agree on our long-term objectives. The short-term strategy should be a gradual development, no revolution. So that's all for me. Sorry for not keeping the time. We thank you, Tereza. And to those joining us online, just know that you can ask your questions using the chat. We will ask them. And if you're here with us, you can ask your questions, but wait for the mic. So who's the first willing to ask something? Maybe Tereza has said it all, but do ask your questions if you have some. Wojciech Cibulka from the Department of Sound. I'm also a member of the Scholarship Committee. You talked a bit, you touched upon academic excellency. scholarships. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? What changes are you planning? What changes regarding social background scholarships? It's quite a topic. I just participated in a discussion with the representatives of other Czech universities, and we talked about that. How can we support socially disadvantaged students? So what's your take on that? I only focused on academic results or academic excellency scholarship. I think that David Čeněk will know more about that. But there's one thing very specific to FAMU I'd like to emphasize. You receive your academic scholarship for your academic results. And we must realize that practical courses can be very strict when it comes to noting. And also, there is a huge variation about how specific professors know that their students, so some very good students do not qualify for these scholarships. That's a problem. And sometimes we have also another problem that students have too good results. And then you do not qualify, so that would lead to motivating students to perform less well, and that's absurd. So that's why we have to change it, and we have to focus only on academic and not practical seminars and courses.
So I do have here the first question on Zoom. Eliška Lobojecká from SAS, she's asking, hi, I would like to ask you how exactly you would like to imagine the cooperation between SAS, Center of Audiovisual Studies, and the Department of Screenwriting and Dramaturgy. This is something that you cannot actually order to people. I was talking to Mr. Blažíček in SAS, and I told him we would love to be included in the projects that are being initiated from SAS and from students of screenwriting. Is absolutely different way of thinking. And Mr. Blažíček said that this is not just about them, about pedagogues, about faculty, but also about the students. They should have some say. I would like to work with that student, for instance. I would like to talk to Weicher over there, who's the head of Department of Screenwriting and Dramaturgy. I would like the students to pitch their ideas, people from SAS pitch their ideas, and perhaps just get in touch with the students from Department of Screenwriting and perhaps find somebody for partnership. I mean, we know that all of them will meet eventually in pub, but I would like to help them to get to this point. You mentioned few things that were about the structure of the departments and about connections between them, also about the exercises versus the films. This is something that is usually being decided by the departments themselves. What you, as possible dean, how would you do that? How would you influence something that departments are actually doing on their own? How would you like to influence that? About like connection between the departments, about the structure of the sizes, structure of films. I'm not sure how it was done until this point. And clearly there was some effort. But currently I have a feeling that when the exercises are being discussed, for instance, in Collegium of Teen, I believe that there should be also like the management of studio, so we know what is and what is not possible. Based on what I know from my colleagues, there is the certain agreement about it. We are coming back to the exercises. We are not doing like the amazing spectacles from the first years. And the studio definitely will have easier life when the students will be doing exercises, and only since third years, the students will be doing the films, the actual films, the films. Mr. Švejnoha from Studio of FAMU was saying if there were 5 international students, that was okay. However, when we have so many international students nowadays, we clearly need to think about it and redo like all the structure of Studio of FAMU. This is something that a group of people need to discuss. And for next years, we need to clearly plan what we will be doing. This is something, as Zimmerman was saying, so we know that there are a lot of people in mines, and all of them are in the elevator, and all of them are going up. I believe that hopefully it's going to be better in near future. If I can just mention something, the student asked something about the relationship between dean and the department themselves, like whether you, as a possible dean, can influence the decisions of the departments. No, the departments are autonomous. They do have legally elected management. And in fact, whatever is happening above, whatever is happening in dean, whether the dean has a heart attack, the departments, they themselves know what to do. What dean can do is obviously just somehow try to connect those departments, suggest some changes. However, against the departments, against the individuals, you cannot do anything. I know it very well here. Here, everybody does what he or she wants. We need to just make such an atmosphere at FAMU that people should want to do that themselves. I would like to persuade them that it's going to be good for everyone. When Michal Bregant, as a dean, came to the faculty, to the FAMU, so he recreated the system because it was in a crisis. So what did he do? He says, we will take people, he said, we will take people into the first year and they will just make art from the first year. But currently it is not possible. We do have a lot of people, we do have plenty of people. And in technology-wise, it is not possible to do that currently. If you want to trick me somehow, you can. I don't know everything, obviously. But this is something we can hear all the time. It's about that we need a dialogue. So what do you think? Like just encourage the departments to meet together, like do projects together. I think maybe like we do have like 10% chance, but this is the only chance how to do that, I think. You need to have mic. Can I get the mic? Just let's wait for the mic, please. Do you see any problem when we would come back to the exercises? So who would define what is still exercise and what is an art? So far as I know, there was a system already existing, and I would like to know whether there is any chance to come back to that. But it was working already before, and it worked perfectly well based on what I know. So this is the only thing I can tell you at this point. If I can, that's like based on what was said before. This claim that everybody does whatever he or she wants is perhaps correct. It's perhaps true. But we're discussing here like the position of dean versus the departments. However, I would like to know what would you say about the responsibilities of the students themselves in terms of them working on the exercising, for instance, keeping the harmonogram of shooting. If it's not if it's not capped, there is apparently a lot of problem if the timeline isn't capped. Where you see how you can influence that the students would actually cap the timelines, etc. Is there something we can do about it? I know what you're saying. I think that the only thing we can do is just like show the example, just present how it should be done. We do have a system at our department that in BA students, they actually go to the school, they have 80% attendance obligatory, everybody is there in time. And I believe that if it's going to work in our side, on the side of the pedagogues, side of the faculty, I believe that it will work also at student side. So you see that we will need some time for that. Tomáš, you have a question? Thank you. I would like to ask you one thing. You were talking about the school and how is it important to change the situation with administrative and the technical and management personnel. And at the same time, it would be handy if there would be younger members of faculty, perhaps, and new ideas introduced into the school. And I'm thinking about how to get those people to the FAMU. How do you think we can get them? What do you mean, like the young faculty members? You can perhaps begin with young faculty members. It is more important for me. As we know, we have terrible salaries. And us, like who are older, we can just live with them because we do have additional income. Some of us have also some retirement, money from the retirement. However, if you have a department and there is a 65 years average year of the faculty members, it is obviously a problem. We were not able to get younger members of the faculty. Why? Because of this financial reason. So what we can do? The last year we have seen that we had, for instance, like this direct basis of directing or essential directing module. And we were able to get some money, some finance for this class, and he can invoicing. And yesterday I had such an idea. It was really yesterday, so it's not perhaps like totally thought through, but in case we did have in other departments the program in English language in BA or MA program, so that would be space for our graduates who everybody speaks English and they can actually work there.
I'll pick up on that. Yes, English-speaking programs within departments, additional occasions involving modules and international cooperation. These are topics that are managed by the departments and their heads. And I ask myself whether there is a way to encourage those involved, head of departments, to get involved in these projects that are time-consuming and very often very badly paid. And they have their other artistic and creative projects, so they're quite busy. How would you motivate, how would you encourage heads of departments to go for these projects? Only by seeing the benefits that are behind and that it makes sense. We have sometimes people willing to do that and they find the way. And it's always about those active individuals that are willing to do more. Yes, if we would have a management, financially educated management, for example, it can be very functional, of course. and it would be the best for how departments work also, but we do not want that. We want our artistically involved people leading our departments, and then we have to find other ways. And then we need individuals, and then we need students who would call for these projects, creating English-speaking programs, etc. Of course, it's extra work, but I think it would result in more jobs, maybe. Hi, I have a different question. You mentioned your international experience from France, and maybe I'd like to ask about that. Sure thing. Since 2002, with Mr. Bosch, was behind very successful films from the 90s. I cooperated with them. He's actually the one behind the experimental project of Toyen and Jan Němec. So I worked with him. I worked as a dramaturge, and I actually translated. I used to translate from French. And then since 2011, I've been again cooperating with my French colleagues. We worked on Trnka nalezený přítel, and then we created another very artistic, very beautiful film, Válka obrazu, about how during the Cold War there were two animation film approaches that were fighting against each other. And now we just received funding for another piece about Terezín, and about we will work on a feature length about Muppet makers. And I would actually love to launch projects like that. I'd like to create a module about video games. It would be great to invite professionals from other backgrounds, mathematicians, for example. That would be great. And I think that sometimes the only thing it takes is to ask. And when you ask even uncomfortable questions, you can sometimes learn a lot. And since I asked my colleagues about many of these, I think I came with some interesting ideas. Jitka Hejtmanová, the head of FAMU International, I would like to ask those asking questions to introduce themselves when they ask them. Hello, Petr Marek from the Department of Directing. I'm also a senator. My question is to both candidates. David Čeněk now will have an advantage because he can think about it. But you're first to answer. The question is the following. Do you already know about something in our internal regulation, in our regulatory codes, about some things that should be changed? I haven't given it a thought, frankly. I don't know what exactly you mean by internal regulation. To me, it seems that it is working. Is it or isn't? Nobody knows. Good evening, Andrea Slováková. I work for the Dean's office. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you all for these interesting questions. I have also a question to both candidates. Maybe I will come up with a different to David Čeněk, because he would indeed have an advantage compared to you. Let's talk about your environmental objectives. Producers from across various fields focus on environmental aspects. Currently, we have, however, just a few people who would be experts, who would have a background in the field of filmmaking and environment, so that they could serve as those environmental consultants. So we need to educate such people, and I would like to know how you would approach that, how would you promote environmental aspects and sustainability in general in film production. How would you cooperate also with those financing institutions, and how would you support this role of environmental consultants in filmmaking? I think it would be very interesting to create a course focused on this very complex topic. I talked about that with Tereza from the Department of Production, because we might get a grant, we might get funding for systems that are assessing environmental footprint of a filmmaking project. Of course, currently we can't order students of screenwriting, for example, to take these environmental aspects into consideration. We need them to be very creative. And then, of course, we have also projects with astronomical budgets that are not taking environmental aspects in consideration at all. But then we have projects that receive funding, and then they spend it on flight tickets to who know where, while it could be perfectly done locally. So yes, indeed, I believe this is a topic of interest, and I think it would be interesting to cover it by a module, by courses, because we lack information and we lack background in this. Tomáš Hájek, I study documentary, and I'd like to know what's your take on the establishment of an indoor covered space within FAMU, the FAMU building. That's a good thing that you mentioned, because we have one building in our ownership, and the current rental contract is due to expire, so there will be new premises available, and it could be interesting maybe to do that with this space, as you suggest, and that's something I'd like to focus on. We sure first have to reconstruct or rebuild air conditioning, but we have to focus on that. And you talk about the covered space where people go smoking. Well, actually, there's quite many visions for how we could transform that unused space. So you are in favor of reconstructing that? Yes, of course. Come up with a project, and we have to, of course, consider it officially, and we might talk about that in detail. Wojciech Cebulka from the Department of Sound. One more question from me. Maybe you might have mentioned it in your presentation, but I came a bit late. But I did read your vision in full. Could you tell us about your ideas for research at FAMU? Again, quite a big topic that could result in a lot of funding with some additional know-how and etc. So how would you like to develop research, doctoral students, etc.? I am member of our study field committee. I became member just recently, and I feel that we could actually make synergies with our creative work. We could actually join artistic research with our creative work. I've been following similar projects for many years. I've been following those very successful research projects that are directly linked to artistic creation. I think that's a very valuable source that we have to harness. There will be one of our colleagues is leaving, and she has left beautiful projects behind herself, very successful projects behind herself, and she'll have to be replaced by somebody. But this colleague that is leaving is incredible, and I will definitely consult with her who should replace her, because she was very good at it.
So we have approximately 10 more minutes. Perhaps, can you show me my presentation once more, if there is something we would just find interesting, if we have a moment? Can you please just like very quickly go through that? Okay, so I can do that. All right, so I will do that. I didn't realize that it's in my hand. So I'm gonna go through that on my own. So do I, or no, I don't. Anyhow, so do you have any questions about safe environment in school? Can you please somebody help me here? Something we did go through and didn't have a chance to discuss further. So I would like to know one thing. You mentioned something about listening students, listening those people who are, and you were talking about collegium of students. No, I was talking about kind of shadow conceptions, a shadow plan of students. I will tell you what I mean. This is something that I would ask the student ambassadors from the departments, because they are in touch with their colleagues from the departments. I would communicate with them, make few points, 1 point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there would be few questions, a few themes, and they would answer those. Obviously, it would be anonymous. Sometimes I see something, I'm so excited about it, and finally you will see that this is actually useless, and this is not something you can do on your own. This is something that should be discussed among multiple people. I think it would be wonderful and can help to the changes within the school. Do you know what I mean? It's not about just meeting people in atrium or in Ponieshice. It's I or somebody else would ask them, what do you guys think about it? Here you have 8 themes, 8 topics. What do you think about it? So we were talking about stipends, we were talking about support for the student. And this is something that everybody should have a say, and not only faculty, not only Ministry of Education. And this is something I have written in my presentation, that we are here because of the students and not the other way around. Sometimes it's wonderfully planned. However, until it actually is being applied, it's gone. Perhaps the last question. Helena Fikerová. I am the member of Academic Senate from Department of Cinematography. You mentioned something about the fact that the students should be better educated to compete in the outside world, and I wanted to ask you, what do you think can be done for the students so they are better prepared for the film industry at the point when they are leaving the school? Perhaps you yourself can share your experience you have with the Fund of State and Cinematography. The situation in the Czech Republic is not good. The fund will be gone in a half year. Czech television doesn't take any plan until the end of the year. So there is not really a lot of opportunities currently. I think it's wonderful if somebody get the opportunity to work on the series, but those are products. And the credits are so quick that you don't have any, that you won't even know that you were working on it. And it's great. It's great that you have such a work, but we are not just like, like such like normal school. We are the school that's special, and everybody wants to do something that is important, that will stay in the world behind them. For instance, when we would do mentoring and we would exchange students, I was thinking about, for instance, have, I don't know, Prague, Paris, Prague, Copenhagen, and the students would be working together on the project. Andrea already had the idea how to do it, like in practical terms. I think it's very important to the students go outside, like to the world, and the people from outside coming to the Czech Republic, because we all are working in different ways. It's important to meet new people, because clearly there is a lot of people and not that many opportunities. If I may, there's a lot of people in the small place. Thank you to Tereza for her presentation. And we will ask David Čeněk. The stage is yours. You have 15 minutes, and then there's gonna be Q&A. Hi, everyone. My name is David Čeněk, as you know. I would like to begin with my presentation. So let's wait till there will be first slide. I do not think that I can do anything at this point. So before my presentation will appear, I would like to explain that that my presentation is slightly different, and it is like kind of the bridge towards our following Q&A. And I guess this is something you would like to know. It has just very, very few slides, and those slides are super short and can only be like inspiration for the further questions from the public. I'm gonna explain it soon. So it's working already. All right. Like this plan, this vision for next couple of years, I understood it rather as something that should show the certain visions. Therefore, I did not include how it is right now, the current situation. I understand that the faculty in any case need to fulfill the law about university and the tertiary education. And very often we hear that the students are here to serve to the students. So here I actually translated it into the English. In my plan, you see the certain ideas, how I would like to lead the school farther. So those are the certain ideas, certain offers I believe may help to the students and graduates so they have better opportunities in the market, so they can develop their talent, their abilities in a way that they would need. Obviously, our school also promised to the students to learn, to teach them the craft. This is something that appears very often in a lot of discussions. Because I am already 4 years the vice dean for international cooperation. So here we have like a few teams, a few fields that we should probably discuss. This is something that we discuss again and again and again. I know that all art schools are fighting with similar issues. And I actually think that some of those issues do not even have a good solution. It doesn't mean, though, that we should resign and that we shouldn't try to resolve them. One of those problems or one of those issues we have is something that I saw at the very beginning of my work at FAMU, and this is safe environment. This is something very simple. However, it means that everybody who works or studies at FAMU, those people, he or she should feel safe. The problems that people have can be of a different variety, obviously. But apparently, like very often, like we do have some issues connected to studies of the students. I believe that everybody should know whom to address in case of any problems, any distress. We do have ombudsperson, we do have psychologists, we do have trade unions, we do have managements. And I believe that all the issues should be kind of internal and should be discussed within the faculty. Whatever we would like to resolve, whatever we would like to discuss, shouldn't be immediately leaked outside. I think that each schools, each university need to do that, and everybody even does. And I was talking with the colleagues from various film schools from the abroad, and I have seen that they are resolving it basically by the same way as we do. We obviously should not close the eyes before the issues and ignore the issues that are happening. I understand that everybody was not resolved. Not everything can be resolved fully. And I'm not sure whether we all are aware that we know whom to address, like in the specific cases. And I think that this is something that should be definitely developed further. Another huge group of issues is like very like challenging programs. The students, unfortunately, are having a lot of duties. So In my slide are two issues that we are facing currently. And we see that also in students' evaluations. There isn't really like that many percentage of evaluations we do have. However, there are two things that I might have seen in those evaluations. The first are redundant subjects. And I do not mean exactly that it would be something like absolutely useless, but there are some subjects that perhaps overlap a bit, that have similar agenda. But so far as I know, this is something that Petr Vacek already worked on. We should just just clearly say whose subject it is, and we should resolve that. Also, the students do not have the credit evaluation that they should deserve. We do have the subjects that do not really match the work that the students need to do for that particular subjects. But this is not something that the dean can do on his or her own. Obviously, it is about the so-called garant of the program, obviously the leaders, the management of the departments, and faculty members. It cannot be just said we will do this and that. It needs to be the subject of discussion. As you know, some of the departments, they already canceled some of the subjects and changed the structure of the subjects. However, it may be perhaps something that can resolve the cooperation between the department that is somewhat problematical in certain cases, because then the students, from some reason, cannot cooperate on the exercises because they simply have a lot of work.
Sorry, it was me. I'll relaunch it. Sorry, my bad. And this is my last slide about two topics I'd like to cover as dean. It's mentioned in my strategic vision. And that's something that's been an eternal headache of all deans of FAMU, and that's space. I agree with something that's been said already. We have two main buildings where we teach. Lažanský Palace is already used to its maximum. We came up with a reconstruction plan in the past, but it's impossible to realize because it's strictly protected by cultural heritage institutions. So there is no possibilities. That's why we have to look elsewhere, just like other universities do. We have to look for more space in different buildings. And I think that is something that will take more than 5 years, and it should be worked on by all consecutive deans because it takes time. In any case, I will continue in holding these talks and raising this issue, because we have to join our forces within the school to finally tackle it. We need more space, that's for sure. And we can't teach in Verone because it's too far. We need something that's closer and that's more suitable for teaching. Of course, our central building is great, but it was not designed for filmmaking teaching. I was abroad and I saw beautiful modern buildings that were designed for filmmaking teaching, and the architecture is just uncomparable. It is way better. But of course, we can't do that. No reconstruction is possible in Ležanský Palace. And one last point, I'm quite actually skeptical about that. Even though we have many opportunities, we are quite well poised for development. However, I don't believe we will receive more funding from the Ministry of Culture. I attended the meeting of the Committee of Universities that resulted in an analysis that was submitted to the competent bodies within the Ministry of Culture. The analysis concluded or made a clear summary of incomes and revenues and spending of artistic schools, etc. First, we were told that as a filmmaking school, we have excessive spending. That was one thing. Then, regarding our income, when compared to the medium or average income, it didn't come off bad, actually, both for teachers and academic staff. So I believe that lobbying will not bring us more money, especially not as a dean. The Minister of Culture can't talk or hold private talks with a particular dean because that could be labeled as discrimination. And that's why the only way out financially is to increase our stable income. And we have to look elsewhere for sources of financing. And it can be many things. It can be grants, not only for research, but Erasmus for study stays offer also quite interesting funding. Tereza mentioned that we can actually join 3 schools in creating one film project across these 3 countries. And then actually it is acknowledged as an integral part of study programs. Then we have donors and donation possibilities, which again I can see from abroad can be very successful. It is a very complex issue, of course. And I think that unfortunately we are not used to receiving donations in tertiary education, but I would try that, because for example with mentoring we also had no culture of that in the Czech Republic, but we tried and it works just perfectly. So I've used all of my time. Thank you. Thank you, David, for your presentation. Let's open the floor for questions. And I again invite those online to write their questions, put them in writing in your chats, and then we'll read them. And please do not forget about using your mics, because everything is interpreted into English. Hello. You didn't mention that, but you talked about that in your written vision, and it regards our mentoring programs. You say that the mentoring program is not sustainable and that it should be changed. I'd like to hear what will be the impact on students, which I actually welcome as a student. I also believe that the current structure is somewhat vague. I do not know what to expect as a student. Sure. I don't think that I say that the program is not sustainable. What I mean is that the mentoring program should or could become part of our study programs. And that is again down to the program guarantors to decide about that. And if we agree that yes, mentoring should be part of study programs, that actually poses new requirements, because these mentoring programs then would have to be open every year or every semester. It should be then well managed by the department, the department would have to embrace this change, and this change wouldn't be that complicated, actually. And then my idea would be to create a sort of informal advisory board that would include representatives from the Academic Senate or the academic community. Within this entity, we would discuss about the future of this mentoring program, about its funding, how the funding will be allocated and distributed, etc. In my written strategy, I also talk about different possible forms of mentoring that haven't been that much developed yet because we're lacking funding. But our mentoring program could be more practically oriented, actually. We've had a couple of examples, but indeed, we were just two, me and Mrs. Potorovicheva. Me and her were just the two only behind, and we were overwhelmed, so we couldn't push it any forward. Also, I think that with mentoring, we could focus on your final graduate films, and that in a way that you could consult not only us, but also foreign filmmakers. That would be interesting. But then, of course, your department would have to be in favor. You would have to find people who would support you in this project, because we really need a consensus if we want to create these new projects. Because after all, it's the department, it's your professors, it's your teachers from FAMU who are responsible for you and your studies. We can never rely on our foreign collaborators when it comes to your study future and study perspectives. Hello, I am from the Department of Documentary Film, and I have a question from the chat. David, thank you for your presentation. However, I lack information about the current creative practice. Why? A fresh graduate recently wrote me that she's having great difficulty with her practice because she was having hard time finding staff. She had to call 20 different sound masters to find a sound master and 30 editors to find an editor. So that's an issue. I think, and we can see these problems in many other fields. This student shows or said that we lack capacities. The situation is frustrating. What can we do about this problem of undercapacity of professionals in our industry? That is the question. Thank you for your answer. That's a tricky one, because I believe it's much deeper, and I can't probably answer it. I have just limited knowledge when it comes to this problem. But I know that this is an issue. That it is an issue. I've been approached by students and graduates who complained about the situation, even though I can't do anything about it in my role. And there is a number of reasons behind it and solutions. The first thing is to raise the issue, talk with the departments, because they are those concerned. Especially those departments that are approached and that are requested, and those professions that are underdeveloped. For example, the Department of Production has already taken a step further to change the system to deal with this. But then the burden or the obstacle that we are faced with is that people come with new and new obstacles. It creates a vicious circle. And we have no more professionals, and our students can't set up a team. So that's a problem. A possible solution is to communicate and talk about that topic. That's for sure. Another possible reason is that students have to complete many courses, so they're busy studying and they can't actually work and gain practice. Another question that I'm asking myself is maybe to look elsewhere. And that's something that's been done abroad, actually. The same problem is abroad. For example, they're lacking technical professionals, so they are unable to find people, especially in directing. So what they do is that they approach different schools and they actually exchange professionals. And it's framed as international cooperation. Maybe that would be a possible avenue for us. I don't know if it's possible. However, I believe that we first have to detect the root causes of this problem. Why? How come that graduates can't set up a team? How come that they are desperate trying to complete their film, lacking professionals? I'm not sure whether we can solve that from within our school. I hope we can, but only if all of us are involved, all of the stakeholders. Unfortunately, the problem is now impossible to resolve for those currently studying or for those who have already freshly graduated. It's a problem, a long-term problem that's been on for more than 20 years. Nobody has given it a thought. Nobody has done anything about it. And now we're faced with this desperate situation, and many students are actually faced with that.
Tomáš Hájek, the Department of Screenwriting and Dramaturgy. I would like to ask you something about students ambassadors. I'm actually one of them. You mentioned that students ambassadors, they have like the specific agenda in like self-evaluation of departments, and also there are like independently those evaluations, those feedbacks in a learning management system that we call POS. How do you feel that like this role of students ambassadors for the future, like on one hand in this like kind of evaluation / feedback agenda, and on the other hand about their position as persons like who should be in touch with the students, should be reliable, the students should be encouraged to talk with them about their issues. Thanks for the question. I would love to talk about that. The students ambassadors, even of those English programs, I would love to use them more. I mean, use quote unquote, because I've understood that you can get from them very important information, because they do have trust from the students and faculty of the departments, and they should be kind of mediator between the department and dean, because sometimes we get about the issues really late. on the other hand, from the students ambassadors, we obviously can get the feedback about some issues from another view than the faculty of the department has. We did not have regularly meetings. I would love to have regular meetings with the students ambassadors, and I think we should have some regular agenda. There are some part of the agenda that they need to talk about, that they need to have some say, and some part of the agenda that they do not necessarily have to discuss because they also need to study at the faculty. Sometimes they cannot really influence any issue because sometimes dean cannot influence any issue, some of the issues. I will come back in our discussion to the point that you said earlier about finding some other financial sources. What is the motivation of you or guardians of the programs to find the people for mentoring, some other projects, cooperate with another partners from another schools? Because from my own experience, I know that this motivation doesn't work that well. I do not think that it should be students who would be coordinating mentoring, or this is not students who should press on the management of the department to write some English program. It's impossible, obviously. I was thinking about the complex issue. All right, so what do I think about it is faculty does not have the capacity to do that. There should be really different body, perhaps some committee of mentoring. When I was talking with the people at all of the departments, all of the heads of the department, they were saying me, we would be very interested. However, we do not have the capacity to do them. So they are the ideas, there is the effort, but we need to just show them some support because it's not people from the departments who should do that. Rather, I, as a dean, should come to their place and say, all right, so here is the possibilities, here is the issues, this is what we can do for that. And you can just provide the content. But I do not think that the departments themselves should think about where to get the money to provide the mentoring for their students. And I do not think that this is about motivation. Like each of the department is motivated. Some of them are motivated less, some of them more. However, everybody is motivated. If I remember well, there isn't any department who wouldn't love to participate in mentoring program. There is rather too many of interest, too much of interest. Maybe it should be done a little bit differently. Maybe not do it like as a bonus to our program, but like have it as an important part of our curriculum. This is something that already Tereza Brdečková was talking about it, and it is about like how the students are able to compete within the film in film industry when they graduate. At FAMU, always the relationships between the people, these informal relationships were always very strong. Which support the student offers, the FAMU offers to the graduates. In fact, being honest, I don't know about any support because I don't know, like whether schools, whether universities provide some support for their graduates. I haven't heard about it. But I know that the art schools are trying to be in touch with their graduates. The schools may try to help them create the films, the actual films, not the student films, but also they are in touch with them because the graduates may obviously become the members of faculty. They may also like be mentors for the current students of FAMU. And this is something that may work pretty well at FAMU. We were actually trying to do that with Mrs. Brdečková multiple times, just get our graduates so they work as mentors for our students. I was talking in my plan that you have the access to about the certain options how to do that. But as a society, I am not sure that we are that far as in some countries because they have their mercenaries, so people who support them. But there is the option of so-called laboratory that the students or actually graduates can be part of so-called lab and may be chosen by the sponsors. So this is something that cannot be done during this like 1 4-year term that the dean has. But this may be one of the options. However, you as students should have a chance to say, what do you want to do after the school? Some of the people wants to participate within film industry. Some of them wants to be rather independent and do not want to be part of like all those pitchings. I mean, everybody needs to pay the bills, right? But it doesn't mean that necessarily this needs to be the way. Petr Marek, directing department. I would ask the same question as I asked Tereza before. Davide, what do you think about the inner regulations of FAMU? Would you like to change some of those? Yeah, a lot. A lot. I would love to change, however, are under AMU, under Academy of Musical Arts, not FAMU itself. So we need to communicate with rectorate how to do that. For instance, the competitions we have for the head of the departments is something that definitely needs a change. Another thing is Dean's decree about the festivals, like what like students' films go to the festivals. It doesn't mean it was wrong when it was written. However, the situation changed, and we can hear it again and again from our students that it's unclear, that it is something that should be changed. We need ethical codex. This is in the final. There are like final steps in front of us. This is not change. This is there's just slight change. This is not anything super new. We can keep talking But for instance, it is about our Academic Senate that should have, in my opinion, more members. It should be, this is the discussion that should be open within academia. Do we even have, however, enough candidates so we can have more members of Senate? I don't want to talk 20 minutes about inner regulations, no, but I do not think that there is any inner regulations that would avoid the school to function fully, but there are a few that can be changed, that can be a little bit adjusted, like to current situation. We do have more students programs than we used to have, for instance. We still have enough time, though. But we do not have to talk all the time, of course. Just additional question about the graduates and their position in film industry. You yourself use the word film industry. Very often I hear, let's cooperate, let's work within film industry. But I do not really see any attempt to connect us as students with those institutions, with Czech televisions and film industry as such. I believe we should be in touch with the people who are the representatives of the media, of the film and of the film industry. What, from the position of possible dean, what would you do? I see two levels of problems here. The first is I believe that that majority of faculty is actually working within the industry, whether they are working in Czech television or in other companies. So there is already some connection. The question is like how this connection should look like. But I am a little bit skeptical because honestly, I do not know why Czech television would cooperate with FAMU. It is not really anything common, internationally speaking, that, for instance, the German television would cooperate with a film school in Germany. What Czech television would have from that? Like, which profit? I do not understand what we can do, how we can communicate with Czech television as partners. They do offer some partnership, some form of partnership, some cooperation, but I do not think that it can be some kind of concept, like something as a rule. Also, it depends on the director of Czech television, and the new leadership comes and just say not anymore. So we cannot really rely on the fact that the Czech television will be part of some cooperation that would even like influence, for instance, the student program. I wouldn't really want that. I would be really afraid of that, in fact. I think that what you should do is that you should be able to go abroad. All countries like who are small, like Belgium, Luxembourg, they are trying like to get together to form partnership because this like national anchorage of the film is gone. We need to talk about how to make you be able to compete also in the abroad. You cannot be limited only by the Czech Republic, by our national borders. The world will not work like that in the future. The best schools, the best schools are always creating the programs, the common programs for students. They are trying to connect them because, in fact, they are competitors. Why they do that? Because it's simply not enough.
I am a member of FAMU's ethics committee, and you mentioned the code of ethics. A very good idea, I think, that it should be worked on in more detail, because the current document, its focus lies elsewhere. So I'd like to know how this document will be created. Will you set up a new ethical or ethics committee? How will this code will be implemented in the day-to-day working of our ethics agenda? Because I think it will result in a complicated situation. The current ethics committee might be actually quite skeptical about this new sub-code, if you know what I mean. Well, the code of ethics is a tool that is used by many institutions, not just universities, because we actually realize that we have to formulate the rules that societies abide by in a written form. I am in favor of that, and I want FAMU to have this document. The document itself will not encourage people to follow its rules. So, by definition, there must be a supervisory body that will enforce it, and that is an ethics committee. That needs to be established via new internal regulations that don't have to be difficult or complex. We can get much inspiration from abroad. So I don't think this will be an issue. However, the issue will be the final decision, and then the enforcement of such a document, because FAMU has not been used to abiding by such a document. However, we should not demonize FAMU, because these problems occur also across the board, all over the Republic and in many institutions. So I also don't want this document to be something to be feared. Because when you look at universities with codes of ethics, you can see that there are not that many problems or submissions or issues that would be resolved, because the existence of the code itself sometimes suffices. So it helps and it improves the situation as such. So I think it's a functional tool. I have a question by Petr Marek from the Directing Department. You mentioned the issue of a safe environment. How would you like to improve a safe environment to avoid wiretapping and leakage of private emails of professors, etc.? As far as I know, there was no leakage of private emails of professors within FAMU, at least. Our IT service assured us that our email boxes have not been hacked. But of course, I can't, from my power as dean, I can't avoid or prevent such thing from happening. And regarding wiretapping or eavesdropping, yeah, something like that has happened. I don't know the details, but if something like that happens, it would qualify as a crime, and then it falls within the power of the Czech police to deal with that. Me as dean, I would just submit that to the Czech police and then cooperate with the rectorate to find a solution. I as dean would in no case establish controls or take any measures. But I think these are very specific incidents. It is not a systemic problem these are privacy issues that can happen. Just like Tereza mentioned regarding some of the conflicts between students and professors, I also believe that some of the conflicts or some of the submissions, some of the problems should be resolved or should be kept confidential. And now I maybe got lost in my answer a little bit, but I hope you could see my point. Hello, Tereza Dvořáková, the head of the production department. I think that our colleague Peter wanted to know how would you enhance the cultivation, how would you cultivate a safe environment? Yes, you're correct, but this question talked about these two specific incidents. Leakage of email that didn't occur. Then our incumbent dean has issued internal directive to provide for such situation. We have actually we have to be very prudent. We have to be using our university emails because they are better securized. And then regarding the wiretapping incident, I must say that, again, it was just a one-off incident. And as dean, I can't provide for any systemic measures because it was really a one-off situation. So really, I would, of course, talk about the situation in general, but this particular question was aimed at those specific incidents. There is one thing I find interesting, and that's the issue of students being overwhelmed with the study work. What I think is problematic is dissonance between and a lack of harmonization and connection between individual courses, between individual departments. Practical seminars and inductions are not well linked. We still touch on this topic of the conflict between theory and practice. And my question is whether you as dean would be in favor of focusing our theoretical background more on practice and on what we do as filmmakers in real life. Several things, several points to that. We have re-accredited all of our study programs, all of our study courses. We have new structures to all of them. The structure and these links between these two courses, as you say, well, that's something that falls within the power of study guarantors. And that's the person that you have to approach if you want to raise this issue. Because again, study guarantors pick teachers for our courses. If I were dean, I would approach also the heads of departments, because these are those who decide about employing teachers. So these are the two actors that actually co-create study programs and their structure, because they are behind the structure. Dean, in this case, can, of course, influence or shape the discussion, but his or her powers are limited in this regard. But they should intervene in the discussion. However, yes, you are right. We as FAMU decided that we have no coordination body. In the past, SAS used to be in charge, but then they didn't want to do that. So we created another body, Cabinet Audiovise, a fresh entity that's been on for barely a year. And that is the entity that should be in charge in coordinating all of it. It's not working ideally. Currently, we're far from the ideal, but we've definitely taken the right path. We have a body that is in charge of it. We need indeed to improve internal coordination to avoid overlaps in courses, to make sure that there is connection and clear communication between individual departments. Tereza already talked about that, because our information system that is also far from ideal. But I must say that this program, this agenda regarding study programs is so complex that I do not know all of the intricacies that are behind. What I know is that we need a coordinated entity. We have it now. It's not working ideally, but we have it. So let's be patient and let's hope that coordinating efforts will improve. And I would refrain from mentioning other details because maybe we would end up in a difficult discussion. But just I want to say that departments currently are overwhelmed, so they can't be in charge of coordinating and sharing information. So it definitely is not up to them. Good evening again, Andrea Slováková. I will ask also about the environment. The question will be slightly different from the one I asked Tereza. Could you tell us how you feel about the environment? How, in your opinion, FAMU should take that into account to educate new environmental consultants that we need? I think this topic is of the essence. It's something that we can't ignore. However, I must say that my knowledge is rather limited. I know that we've created this environmental manual, this document. I do not, however, know all of the details. I know that we have an environmental ambassador. I've met her, but only twice, so it's rather superficial. Nevertheless, I believe it is really of the essence. And if we are to educate future environmental consultants, I think it's a great idea. It's a profession that already exists. But it would, of course, require changes within our faculty. The first thing to start with would be to create courses, classes for that, or seminars. Maybe we are far from establishing a distinct study program, but we can talk about creating courses. Maybe we could create also a strategic vision for this particular aspect. I also feel that students are very much in favor of this step. I've never heard from students to believe that it's something we do not need. However, I would not exaggerate. I would make it practical and convenient, because we actually, in real life conditions, environmental conditions must be much stricter than at university, because if we were to stick to these very strict conditions, we would need more money. Of course, we don't have that money. I don't say that we should completely forget about the environment, but we should stay realistic. Hello. I would like to pick up on a question that's been already asked. And that's about the urgent issue of the cooperation between individual departments, because they do have certain autonomy. Their study programs are managed by study guarantors and the heads of departments, so it's their decision. They know what their priorities for their students are, and they create these study programs. But on the other hand, we have departments that are dependent on cooperation with other departments. So that's why at some departments, students can earn their degree with no cooperation with any other department whatsoever. And of course, that's something we do not want to do. We do want to create professionals that can work in interdisciplinary teams, in teams that will be able to survive in the real world. I believe that our task, and I agree that our task indeed is to prepare students for the real world. They need to gain know-how and professional contacts to establish themselves as filmmakers. That's the major added value of our school compared to people who just decide to do it on their own without studying. That being said, as far as I know, there is no platform that would define this as a priority. Nowhere can we see that interdepartmental cooperation is our primary priority and not just a necessary evil that we have to put up with. So that's the essence of my question. How would you lead? How would you manage the individual programs to make sure that the final products are really results of a cooperation?
We have only 3 more minutes or 2 more minutes. So where should I begin? I mean, we need to initiate it in some discussion. It will not be at Collegium, however, because they do have like so incredibly full program that it needs to be discussed separately. Unfortunately, what you are saying, it is only something that concerns few of the departments, because some departments do not really care about it. So just tell us the solution. So here is the this and that problem, this and that department. This is what we will need, and just give us like some idea how to resolve this issue. I don't think it's necessary right now to discuss it in detail. Maybe we can think about how it can be resolved from outside the school. Because there are the certain limits, of course. You have like the limited number of students. There is supposed to be many films done, and we simply do not have enough students to cover those films. So there are those problems, but this discussion is going on there. It is discussed so far as I know. But it is something, it is really a long way. I came to the school when all of the students' programs got new accreditation, so it was really complicated. Can I just add something? This is like quick commentary. When we have 3 departments for directing, the Department of Directing is communicating, for instance, with the cinematographers right away, like 2 weeks after the students are accepted. There are basically 4 directing departments, because we also like have directing at FAMU International. Is it a question? It is a question. I do have a question. And shouldn't we ask all departments one simple question, whether they want to do the common pieces of art, the common project, and just kind of, this is like from where we would go on. we should discuss, of course, like how everybody understands that. I can understand that not all programs is interested into it. I wouldn't just ask that kind of question. This is exactly what I mentioned. So what is the solution? What is the solution for the problem? Why, based on your opinion, it does not work? I do not think that we should ask each department about it, whether it is primary thing, because not for all departments it is a primary thing. You cannot just ask them, is it primary or not? I don't think that is a good question. It is. This question already suggests the certain answer, and it's not pleasant. It already suggests the answers. And it can even look that you do not want to cooperate. I can imagine that, for instance, at SAS, at Center of Audiovisual Studies, they do not have this issue, but they simply do not need to push those cooperation. Maybe they would just like help to individuals like who would be interested, but maybe it's not general for the whole department. We should really keep the time limits before we will have a break. I'm a little afraid that some of you won't come back. So after the break, we will have very short presentations of two candidates, Čadek and Tomáš Hájek. So come back after break to the theater hall. I'm pretty sure that you already know these elections will be online on Monday, then also offline. From those two will be elected one senator, and he will replace another one who finished the studies already. And very soon, together with all the other senators, he will participate in the upcoming elections. Everybody is obviously invited to participate. On Monday, we do have 3 candidates. We need 3 students and 2 members of faculty. It will be 5th and 6th of March. It will be also online and offline. And at the same 2 days, there will be election to the Senate, Academic Senate of FAMU. And 22nd of February is the last day when you want to apply to be a candidate for the Senate. And there will be one meeting of academic community, and we will talk about all of the candidates I mentioned. It will be a little bit difficult because currently we do have 9 candidates for FAMU Senate, and there will be perhaps 5 more for FAMU Senate. But come, you're welcome. So let's have 15 minutes break. Come back here, and you will hear 2 presentations of 2 candidates for FAMU Senate. Thank you very much. So let's continue in our meeting of academic community. Another point of our agenda is introducing 2 candidates in election to FAMU Senate. We do have 2 courageous men, and those are Tomáš Hájek and Čadek. So come, show us who you are. And similarly as in the previous case, you will pick a number and it will give us the answer. Who will come first? So the first will be Tomáš Hájek, the second, Čadek. We needed to write a small number, but I swear that it is exactly like that. So it will be presentation without the picture, without the actual slides, and then there will be Q&A. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you to Honza that he participates in this election, because similarly as he also wants our school to be better, to be still better in terms of the quality. I would like to thanks to our colleagues, to our classmates, because the fact that you are proves to me that it's good to be here, that it's good to participate in our life, and that's great that I can speak to you today. I am from the Department of Screenwriting and Dramaturgy. I am in the second year currently. I plan to be here 3 more years. And it is also important in terms of the further election, because similarly as Honza, I am also the candidate of these other elections that are coming. I think that being at the school is a kind of long-term thing. We shouldn't be interested only in what we are resolving right now, but we should also have some vision, and we keep learning and keep listening what the other people think. As an ambassador during the last year, I have witnessed a lot of skepticism and distrust from the students who believe that they do not have any say, that nobody is listening them, that from dean and from the management of the faculty, that nobody really cares about their opinion. I do understand those opinions. However, I do not think that this is something that should demotivate us, but it should make us talk to each other perhaps more and listening what the other students think. When somebody asks me, so how is it at FAMU? I always say them, so FAMU is exactly as we make it to be. And I think that this is really how it is. If we want a lot of students in a lot of different fields, can just work on their own. They can just sit in their room, just going only to the classes that are obligatory, that take attendance. However, this is not the reality. And I love that. I really enjoy that fact, because a lot of students want to be connected. They cherish these connections between the students. There are the relationships between us that can be reflected in our professional life in the future. So I think the aim of the student members of Senate should be to create these friendly environment, listening to students, provide them with the information they need, and space for the discussion that is necessary. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for your presentation. And I'm opening the discussion. And we do have already the first two questions. First, there is Tomáš. Thank you. I am glad that you're in. I have two questions. So you wanna be, you are in two different elections, okay? Right, okay, it is. So the second question, what do you think is the biggest problem of FAMU? Something that bothers you a lot and it's the most important to resolve? This is a very good question. And give me a second, I will think about it and then I will answer. Okay, I'm actually satisfied with the school. And the biggest problem I see is trust and connection between the students, faculty, and management of the school. As I said, a lot of students do not have this motivation to participate in the life of the school more than they have to based on the student programs. So I would like to emphasize, and I think that everybody should know that each voice matters, because I see that the people do not believe that they are being listened, that they are being observed, being accepted. You said that there is distrust in the Senate, perhaps. Why do you think there is this distrust? Why the students do not trust the Senate? I would like to inform that the all complete agenda of Senate is a reaction to the notes, to the suggestions from outside, from the students and faculty. I'm speaking as a student ambassador, and I'm talking about what I have learned, not only from students' evaluation, but there is also, like, within this evaluation is the question that I asked them, what do you think about like how the school actually works? And a lot of students answered that get their opinion, their suggestion, their issue to the Senate is not that easy. Can I answer? Can I respond? It is as simple as just like give us like any suggestion. This is as easy. I believe that it is so. However, the students do not feel like that. This is simply like what I've heard. I would like to add something. In fact, during all Senate, the all existence of Senate, all the notes, all the issues that the students gave us, we accepted. We never refused, not even one. I would like to ask you whether you have any idea how to make it easier for the students, like how to appeal, how to, suggest something to the Senate, because at this point you can just write to me or to David or to anyone, and you can just say, I would like to resolve this and that. So what else you can do to make it easier? In fact, I think that the system is okay. However, the students apparently are not aware of that, because a lot of the students who are here even a couple of years, they simply are not aware of that. This is what is the problem. So this is probably quite important thing. Like somebody's opinion was refused. So no, this is not that right. So the problem is that the students are not aware that they can appeal, that they can just write any issue they have to the Senate. Oh yeah, this is exactly what it is. This is what the problem is. I would like to ask you, Tomáš Hájek, from Department of Directing. I want to ask you, where is the differences between the agenda of student ambassador and the member of the Senate? What is different? What you cannot do as an ambassador being a senator. As an ambassador, I'm working only within our department. However, when I will be in the Senate, I would have more space, more opportunity to talk to the students throughout the different departments from whole school, not only from my department. This is probably the main difference, the main reason why I want to be a senator. Do you see any themes you would like to discuss at Senate? Do you yourself? Yes. Couple of times was already mentioned that the cooperation between the departments, for instance, between screenwriting and directing department, it's being resolved ages. However, I think that it still can be discussed. Maybe we can focus also on the cooperation between the screenwriting department and FAMU International, because, for instance, I found out that in FAMU International, people are really interested to communicate with screenwriters from our department. But in my department, the students do not know about that interest, or perhaps do not know like how to proceed, how to communicate with FAMU International. Any other question we have? The cooperation between directing and screenwriting departments isn't really on voluntarily basis. This is actually obligatory. They have to cooperate. I just wanted to add that. This is important information. So Vojta Cibulka doesn't have any question either. Alrighty, so we can just finish that part of presentation. Thank you to Tomáš Hájek, and now I will ask Jan Čadek. The stage is yours.
Yeah, 5 minutes. 5 minutes for your presentation, Jan. Good evening. Some people have left, but I see why, and I'm glad that my time here will be short. I'm Jan Čadek. I'm in my 3rd year at the Department of Production. Thanks. Thank you, Tomáš, for starting. It's just me and you that are running candidates for these complementary elections, but we can see that for the next ones, quite many candidates have submitted their candidacies, so that's great. Overall, my aim will be to promote coordination between our individual departments. That's a topic that has been touched upon various times throughout tonight's discussion. I don't think that we do not do enough. I think that both the management and our departments do their best, and it's been improving, at least during my time at FAMU. However, there are things that still could be improved. During my studies, I've been trying to promote coordination between the Department of Production and Directing. And generally, we want to include that in our long-term plan, for example, and we want to involve other departments such as FAMU International. Moreover, we should not forget about the Department of Photography or the Department of Game Design. That should also be included. What can the Academic Senate do about it? Senators can vote and express their opinion about those huge underlying topics that are shaping life at FAMU, but also they can pinpoint less known topics, and I'm glad to see that it's been the case lately. We also focus on seemingly minor things that impact our life on campus. And it's great that we can talk about that in the Academic Senate. I also appreciate our cooperation with student ambassadors, and I believe it should be further strengthened. There are several ways we can promote coordination and interconnection between individual departments. I will probably not have the time to run into detail regarding the possible avenues to achieve that. In general, however, I believe that we should pay more attention to these less known submissions. And I also specifically believe we should reform the current system of student feedback surveys, because the response rate is really low. It's a shame. I think it would only benefit our faculty. That's why I'd like to raise the issue in cooperation with student ambassadors, because I feel that we only complain about that when it's topical, that is at the end of the semester. We are lacking student feedback, and then, however, we forget about that, and the topic only crops up once it's the end of the semester again. So I'd like to change it. And I also like what Tomáš mentioned. We both take this very seriously. And even though this election will only entitle us to be a senator for a short time, I would like to emphasize that I would also run in the upcoming elections for the regular term. Tomáš Hájek has the first question from the Department of Documentary. The floor is yours. I have similar two questions. So you are also planning to run for the upcoming regular elections, right? The first one. And the second one, what do you think is the single biggest issue for students of production? Yes, I will run. And the single biggest problem for students of production, probably the overload, the study overload. It is partially down to capacities of FAMU, especially the capacity of our studio. We actually try to organize ourselves in a way to accommodate the needs of those in the studio, but then of course we have to plan well for our timeline, not to lag behind. So I think that the single biggest issue would be this overload of students in terms of practical seminars. I'm Wojciech from the Department of Sound, and I wonder whether you've already broached the topic of the cooperation with the student ambassadors. I'm wondering whether you'd be in favor of establishing some sort of platform, or maybe some sort of WhatsApp hotline where all student ambassadors and all student senators could communicate and could immediately approach the most urgent topics that are propping up as we study. That's just an idea. I think it's a very good idea that will probably be accepted by everyone. It's one of the practical steps that can be easily taken by the Senate. I've been thinking about how we could improve the current system of information sharing between student senators and student ambassadors. This is a good step. I totally second that. But I would add one more thing. I would be glad if student ambassadors could communicate more, not only with the department management, but also with our teachers. Sometimes I feel that teachers are somewhat disconnected from students and they are more in touch with the department management. And I think that we could also use their feedback, teachers' feedback, given to student ambassadors. It would be great if it would be more general and if it wouldn't be the case with just a handful of selected teachers. I can see it myself. Tereza is one of those teachers that is in contact, in close contact with us, but it's not the case for everyone. Of course, it depends on how much time they spend teaching at FAMU, but generally, yes, indeed, I'm in favor of such measures, and I am deeply convinced that student ambassadors should receive feedback also from teachers, and from more of them than it's currently the case. I can't see any more hands, so I have one figure for you to conclude with. It's a magical figure, especially seeing that few of you, and I'm also talking to you online, 25%. We need 25% to make sure that the elections are valid, or the results of elections are valid. That's what we need to achieve the full participation. These partial elections are ahead of us. They will take place on Tuesday, and then in early March, we'll have the regular elections. It's great that we can vote online. So just try and devote 5 minutes to vote online. Just today, we've published a very simple guide to online voting. I tested it myself, and I assure you that I've understood, and I will probably successfully vote online. I might actually end up voting on site, but that's just a great option for you. Jokes aside, really do participate and decide about FAMU's future. Thank you very much for being here. Especially special thanks go to our candidates and their presentations. And I hope to see you soon. Next week, actually, we'll see during our meeting of the Academic Senate when we will vote for our dean. And then on the 1st of March, we will have the presentations of more candidates for the regular elections. The complementary elections. That's all for me. Thank you. Good.